understand this, as we'll see in a second, you have to actually look at the Talmuds. Okay. Any thoughts on that before we go further?
Interesting. I'm just trying to look up. I just looked up Sijin. There's a handful of references to Brill.
Yeah.
I wonder I should look up see what Brill says about that. But I remember we've mentioned in the past that that also related ifrit comes from the term ifrit in Islam is a word that means cunning, insubordinate, powerful but nasty, right?
Yes, so
And
maybe.
it's rebellious. It also means underground demon. It means demon.
Yeah.
But ifrit seems to derive from the Hebrew ifrit, which means a Hebrew, for the first
Yes.
Jews.
Yeah. So this is like.
Maybe I have to show that quickly.
Yeah. Let's do that. I'm gonna come out of here for a second. And
just going to show it just for a moment. My screen. Let me just do my screen. There you go.
Okay. Ifrit. So it means Hebrew.
So it comes ifrit. Okay. Ifrit was an appellation given to Abraham as the first Jew. He was Abram ha-Ivri. He became Abraham's the Ifrit, Ivrit, right? Yeah. And then of course then you suddenly get Ifrit referring to the Jews here. Yeah. Abraham, this would be as a jinn of enormous size, formed from smoke, lives under the ground. So it's a derogatory term. It seems to be derived from Ivrit or Hebrew.
And so the original
jinns.
So Ivrit originally meant like Hebrew. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of distorted it a little bit and make it like a cunning demon.
Yeah, a cunning demon, exactly. They were demonizing the Jews quite literally.
Yeah. Now, I'm obviously not enjoying what we're saying. What is it? I just referenced it. Here. Mel is not here, man. You should tell me about this live. Oh, it's not fair, man. Okay, sorry about that. Did you miss it? Okay. No. So, going to go back where we left off. Tell me, is it loaded up?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so where we left off was Sijin is the register of the wicked, and the register of the right is Eliyahu. Okay. Pardon me. So it's Sijin versus Eliyahu. So that's our clue. Now, A.J. Jude says, from an academic perspective, taking the text simply for what it says, a book was opposed by the authors of the Quran that was written in a place dubbed Sijin. Counterpart refers to a place by the name of Eliyahu, where another book was written. The latter was supported by the authors of the surah. Okay? Now, what book or what books could be important to Jews? Well, what would be the most obvious books? I would suggest there's two opposing books. They shouldn't be really opposing because they're meant to be complementary to each other. But you have the Jerusalem Talmud and you have the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, so that would be the obvious one. But let's see.
Well, Talmud versus Sharia and Torah versus Quran, right?
Yeah, you have that. Yeah. But actually, we'll see where it goes here. Let's have a look. So first of all, we need to understand what we mean by register. Both books have in common that they were places acted as a register, were distinctively written, and are obviously not the Quran. A register is perhaps an institution that records distinct events, such as, for example, a court of law. In a religious context, one might speculate that it refers to different religious headquarters or assemblies, councils, that record their decisions. So that's what's meant by a register. So like a Sharia court would register a decision that they make on a particular dispute, for example. The same would have been done by Jews in their courts. Okay, so that's what's meant by a register. Okay. Now, he goes on to say that the sentiments were strong enough that the registers of Sijin and Eliyahu merited entry into religious scripture. Since these books were distinctively written, perhaps referring to codified symbolic language, it is perhaps safe to reduce the search for the meanings of passages to the religious contenders within the geographical reach of the authors of this surah. Okay, so I've got two maps there. The map on the left represents those who associated with the Jerusalem Talmud, and the map on the right, those who associated with the Babylonian Talmud. This is what I'm going to. This is what AJ.
Hold on, the Bani Israel, the Israeliyat. You had the Israeliyat.
Very good.
The Israeliyat, but that was part of the Jewish Hadith, and then they threw them out and wrote their own Hadith. They borrowed the Jewish stuff because at one time they were using the Israeliyat.
Yeah.
And then they wrote their own Hadith and tossed the Israeliyat out. So Illiyun, shortened version of Israeliyun. Like, yeah, the yun means a group.
Yeah. Excellent, man.
Kafirun, the yun.
Yeah. Excellent, yeah. Very good. So he goes on to say that Sijan also appears to contain the root of the word Jen, which you correctly spotted. In simple terms, understood to be the malicious spirits of the Muslims, it is a word that is used in the Quran countless times. One such representation can be found in Surah 7183, where it puts in contrast to Prophet Muhammad. Will they not bethink them that their companion Muhammad is not jinn possessed? Yes, his office is only that of a plain warner. Okay, so let's remind ourselves of a special office. The Babylonians replaced the Jerusalem with the Ab-Bet Din. Okay, so let's go a little bit further here. This is a warner against the Jenn's heresies or innovations. So he says, since an academic view cannot reconcile malicious spirits with what the text means to say in this passage, the danger of the Prophet Muhammad being possessed by the Jinn relates quite clearly to heretical thoughts. In response, he, or rather his office, is portrayed as a plain warner, presumably cautioning against the dangers of the Jinn's heresies. Do you get that?
Yeah.
So
but this goes back. I bought a book some time ago, and there was a fascinating chapter in it that I meant to do a show on, which I should actually do. A lot of the allegory, a lot of the figures of speech and the language in the Quran derives from Arabic culture. And when you read Arabic poetry of the time prior to Muhammad, you read the poetry and the songs and the way the culture viewed the jinn, you would actually realize how much of that has seeped directly, the pagan Arab culture has seeped directly into the Quran and Muhammad's language and the imagery. So you realize that, and that's how they expressed. So, for instance, to be a good poet, right, to be a world-class, a great poet, a Muslim, the pagans then had to be possessed by a jinn. You had to willingly allow yourself to be possessed, and that's how you became a great speaker. So that they would have used that figurative idea, even if they meant it differently, but that figurative use of language was common to them.
Yeah, I suppose the question is which came first. I think maybe this concept of jinn. I'm not sure yet, but I think they might have borrowed it from Jewish terminology, and then they backdated all the references to jinn as evil spirits. Maybe, I'm not 100% certain, but not sure yet. But part of me thinks maybe they've persuaded us to get it the other way around, but I'm not sure yet on that score. I'll have to hopefully I'll try and work out which.
You need to go and find that book. You're making me think. I need to go back to that chapter and do a talk on that book.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go from there to. Yeah, I've done something wrong here. Let me write it down. Right, now we're back. Okay, so just want to point out that halakha, also spelled halakha, is the collective body of Jewish religious laws. I think you might have mentioned that word earlier on, actually.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. In the Babylonian Talmud, a saying seems to mirror the opposite opinion of the Quran. It was taught in the Tana Devi Eliyahu, whoever repeats halakot may rest assured that he is destined for the future world. As it says, his goings, halikot, that's kind of like a pun, are to eternity. Read not halikot, but halishot. I think that's the correct pronunciation. The halishot was the work of the Surah Academy of the Babylonian Talmud. It is well established that the Academy of Tiberias had been involved with providing troops to the Persian army for the conquest of Jerusalem in 614 AD. Thus, even though the Nasi might have been removed 2 centuries earlier, the Academy was alive and well under Sadducee beliefs in the 7th century. It was a participant. Okay. So he goes on to say that, however, we should find the parallel to the Babylonians in the Jerusalem Talmud. The decisions of Hillel, Jerusalem, are law, and the transgressor of them, Babylon, merits death. Apparently, everybody was in agreement for the others to be expedited to hell. So he's basically saying that it's as if the Quran is arguing back with the Babylonian Talmud. You know, they're debating across the line with each other. Okay. So the Ilion is actually the Sadducees' Jerusalem Talmud. A.J. Jukes says, thus we can reduce the second part of the riddle without addressing other linguistic possibilities. Ilia is an Arabic form of Elia Capitolina, i.e. Jerusalem.
Okay, that's interesting. Elia, just where was Ilia? So hold on, because in Islam you have the Awliya, or the Sufis, who are the friends of Allah. That's interesting. The Awliya, the ones who know God, the ones who are the friends of God.
So this name for Jerusalem was given by Roman Emperor Hadrian. So it's kind of like, it's one of those terms that we may have lost that sense because obviously the name has changed over the centuries. But the Quran's surah is straightforward. The Iliud is the Tana Devi Eliyahu, the Jerusalem Talmud, from the Sadducees, the Levites, Korahites in Tiberias. It is perhaps directly linked to the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem by Nehemiah in 614, 617 AD, or its aftermath. Okay. So, which is it, Eliun or Sijin? A choice of Talmud, the Jerusalem or the Babylonian. So if we look at it again, what is the Quran arguing? Yes, the register of the wicked is in Sijin. So it's arguing that the Babylonian Talmud is the register of the wicked, whereas the register of the righteous is Eliun, i.e. the Babylonian Talmud. Does that make sense? That's what A.J. Jukes has deduced, that it's actually saying our Talmud is better than your Talmud. You know, in fact, your one will send you straight to hell, whereas the Babylonian Talmud is basically arguing that the Sadducees are the godless ones. Okay. Now he goes on to quote from the Babylonian Talmud, which contains a similar concept to the Sijin. Okay, so this is I'm going to read from this. You can see the reference there. In relation to the issue of distancing oneself from idol worship and prostitution, the Gemara relates Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Jonathan were once walking along the road when they came to a certain 2 paths, one of which branched off towards the entrance of a place of idol worship, and the other one branched off towards the entrance of a brothel. One said to the other, let us go by the path that leads to the entrance of the place of idol worship. Got this right. As the inclination to engage in idol worship has been slaughtered and the temptation to sin in this manner no longer exists, the other said to him, let us go by the path that leads to the entrance of the brothel and overpower our inclination and thereby receive a reward. When they arrived there, they saw that the prostitutes yielded before their presence, i.e., they entered the building out of respect for the sages. One said to the other, "From where did you know this, that the prostitute would retreat from us in embarrassment?" He said to him, "It is written, from lewdness, mezima, it shall watch over you, discernment shall guard you," i.e., the Torah will serve as a safeguard against lewdness. So A.J. Juice interprets that to say that the text is trying to say that those that read the Torah hold the counsel of the wicked. It seems to be an allusion to the Sadducees who accept the Torah but reject the recording of oral law. Given the greater Jewish historical context, it can perhaps safely be assumed that the Mezima or Zima refers to the Jerusalem Talmutus. So it's very, like, if you read that Talmudic passage, you'd be hard pressed to decipher what it might be referring to. But A.J. Juice reckons that it's actually a criticism of the Jerusalem Talmutus, whereas the Quran is actually, given the counter argument, it's actually criticizing the Babylonian Talmutus. Okay? Both of these councils or registers do not seem to be related to the council of the wicked in the book of Psalms. While one can never be sure in biblical context there, the counsel is in the sense of not to listen to the advice of the wicked. In the Talmud and the Quran, these are active institutions of wickedness. Any thoughts on that? Are you there? Oops. Can't hear you.
I don't understand it well enough to make a comment because some of the connections seem very arcane. He knows the material in a way that I can't. I would need time to look at it and examine it and read it for myself to really try to understand the connections.
It's very
But
obscure.
what I said was, it is kind of unclear, but it's not completely implausible, let's just say. And given what I know of, that the Talmud had to be suppressed by the Jews because they had the Sharia now, and they had to suppress the Talmud, right? So that they needed to assert, because they extracted what they could, developed their own idea of what the Talmud was in the Sharia, and then they had to get rid of the rest, because nobody knows where the Sharia comes from. It's a big secret, mystery, right?
Yeah. So let's just wrap. Let's get back to here, and I think we're almost there.
Yeah, I need to go in a few minutes. It's getting late.
Yeah, apologies now. Let me just get to the
I'm
end.
an hour ahead of you, so
Yeah. Okay, so the argument he makes here is essentially the sola scriptura Sadducees have no God, says the Babylonian Talmud. The succeeding passages in the Babylonian Talmud shed some light over the meaning of the division between the two. Our rabbis taught when Eliezer ben Parata and Anina were arrested, Eliezer said to Anina, "Happy art thou that thou hast been arrested on one charge. Woe is me, for I am arrested on 5 charges." Anina replied, "Happy art thou who hast been arrested on 5 charges, but wilt be rescued. Woe is me, who though having been arrested on 1 charge will not be rescued, for thou hast occupied thyself with the study of the Torah, as well as with acts of benevolence, i.e. the written oral law, whereas I occupied myself with Torah alone." Okay, this accords with the opinion of Huna, for Huna said, "He who only occupies himself with the study of the Torah is as if he had no God." See the criticism of the Sadducee point of view. For it is said, "Now for long seasons Israel was without the true God." What is meant by without the true God? It means that he who only occupies himself with the study of the Torah is as if he had no God, which is really quite surprising what they're saying. From the Babylonian point of view, if you just are like the Sadducee, that it's the Torah only, the sola scriptura.
Yeah.
You are as if you are like you have no God. That's the way they took it. The conflict in the Babylonian Talmud seems to constitute an answer to the age-old Sadducee stance against the Pharisees. It simply means to say that the Sadducees have no God because they did not accept the recording of the oral law in the Talmud. So you can see there's a conflict there, and they're arguing with each other. One from the Babylonian Talmud, and the other, from the Quran, apparently. Okay, so who is the Babylonian Talmud taking aim at? The Sadducees in Tiberias and Haran are the target of the Babylonian Talmud. A.J. Juice says, thus, identical to the Quran, there is a balance between the wicked and the righteous in between the two contenders, Jerusalem and Babylon. In the Quran, the register of the wicked is in Sijan. This can hardly be a coincidence and likely concerns the same spiritual groups. Sijan might thus be an allusion to the Arabic sijil, meaning the record of a court of justice. Logically, Sijan could be its negative form, i.e. injustice, to mock the wicked. So the register of the wicked is in Babylon, according to the Jerusalem Talmutus, whereas the Babylonian Talmutus would say, au contraire, the register of the wicked is in Jerusalem. So I think that's it. I think A.J. Juice is spot on here. So he says that the balance of Sijan and Elion suggests two scriptural foundations. It seems inferred that the authors of the Quran were true to the Elion, the Jerusalem Talmud, and at least some of their opponents to the Sijan of the Babylonians. The Jen refers to the Beth Din in Babylon.
The house of the Dean.
Yeah.
In Babylon.
And that's basically where I ended.
Very interesting. I mean, there's a lot there. Okay.
Lot to absorb.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in. True.
Yeah. So listen, I know it's late for you, so I'm gonna let you off, Lloyd. Thanks a lot for coming along. People, leave your comments below the video today. Tell us what you think. Do you find the arguments that I've set forth? Well, actually, really, a lot of it is A.J. Juice's arguments. Hopefully, I've done justice to his papers and also the Jewish paper that I shared, and hopefully
there's circumstantial evidence that connects things. So the question is, can you flesh it out into more solid links? But there's definitely this is interesting. It opens up a line of investigation that says, look, there's more to this. Because before this, we didn't have any of this. Suddenly, it's like, wait, hold on, you can trace a line now. Because I've said it in the past, but now you've actually got a line from potentially the Talmud to the Sharia and the Jews to the heretical Jews to the Muslims.
Like if we see a series of dots in a certain direction, we can form a line, reasonably, logically. We can make that inference. Obviously, there's a dearth of evidence. A dearth of evidence. We don't get as much evidence as we'd like. I know this is a classic one, but with the evidence that we've got, I think it's pointing in a certain direction. It's forming a pattern that we can deduce. Now, there are people who are watching that actually might want to still settle with the idea that there was a prophet in Mecca, in the Hijaz. And fine, that's great. I just don't see how the historical context fits with that. That's where I stand. I think if we look at the historical context, I think we have to make a different narrative.
The good research I've seen on the Sharia all points to Iraq. It all points to that region. It doesn't. I mean, look, sure, you can argue that there was some Roman law flying around, or maybe native law, or whatever, local law. Sure, they picked up bits here and there, but the bulk of the development, the serious development, happened in Iraq.
And so I think, if you imagine, like, you have all of these academies, they're like the equivalent of universities. So the whole bunch of them, they're all bunched together in
at least a dozen, and most of them can't be found anymore. They were so thoroughly wiped out. Like, how convenient these movements.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you look at A.J. Juice's last paper, we have actually found the round city of Babylon. It's it's a very compelling paper.
Now I watched that stream as well.
I've asked AJ Dukes to produce the Qibla lines to show that they all point towards this Pompedita, which is Babylon, and you can see the actual the round outline of the buildings of the city. So it means that the location of the mosque that's there was originally a Jewish academy, which means that you can now see the transition from Jewish academy to mosque, and then as you say, like what you mentioned about that Islam basically took over and wiped out the Jewish population, or at least converted them to this new religion. But listen, we'll stop it there. I know you need to get your
Yeah, I have a
sleep.
heavy day tomorrow. So it's been a long day, so another one tomorrow.
Okay.
Cool stuff, man. Interesting. I mean,
Thank you very much.
definitely something here. So good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
See you
Take care.
tomorrow night on the street. I'll be exhausted, but I'll be here.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks a lot.